Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the ZEnergy Tea Break Forum. Understand your energy and water options. Hope you're well. I'm just going to give it a few more seconds and see if we get any more latecomers. Obviously, it's been a bit of a hectic start to the year and all sorts going on in school, so there might be one or two that are just getting themselves into situ. Start by saying Happy New Year to everyone that is on. Hope you had a lovely break over the Christmas period and came back refreshed and ready for what will no doubt be another demanding term. So my name's Ashley, and I'll give you a little bit of information about sort of who I am. Some on the call know me because we're already in discussions, but I'm the Southeast consultant for ZEnergy. I suppose a few sort of facts about me: committed to supporting schools in the Southeast with their energy and water needs. Particularly passionate about ensuring that schools aren't paying more than they should for their utilities. It's, as far as I'm concerned, I appreciate that every pound that is spent more than required in this area could have gone back to the pupils. So it's a really important part of obviously the process that you're on the right deal for you as a school. And I'm keen to make sure of that. And as it says there, sort of some of the really sort of positive notes is that I've managed to gain significant refunds for customers who've been paying the wrong amounts for things like CCL, VAT, and a number of other things. I'm a keen scuba diver, so obviously the planet and what we're doing is really important to me because it has a direct impact on, I suppose, my playground, which is under the waves. And I'm a new dad to my daughter, she's actually not that long ago turned 1, so it's not that new, but yeah, enjoying loving life as a relatively new dad. And yeah, what I do here at work obviously makes a difference to her future, which is it's good to know that I'm making a difference, and I'll be able to sort of say what I was doing to her, say to her what I was doing in the future. So that's enough about me. The awkward bit of talking about yourself out of the way. Who are ZEnergy? If you've never heard of us, then ZEnergy was set up in 2003 by the old owners. The purpose was to be an energy procurement company within the education sector, but somebody that or a company that focused on customer care. There was then lots of people in that sort of genre, that sector. There still are now, but ZEnergy's ethos on customer service is what set them apart all the way back then, and still does now, compared to those that you'll no doubt probably be sort of hounded by at times. And I suppose the customer ethos really then sort of reflects that retention rate that you can see there of nearly 98%, excuse me, which is a really high number in any industry. We naturally lose some customers because schools close, they move to multi-academy trusts where we aren't obviously already in place as the procurement option. So we naturally lose some stuff. And of course, we have one or two people that, you know, will leave for other reasons. We're not 100% perfect, but thankfully those sort of cases are incredibly rare, and we often have them come back when they go away and realise that they're not getting the same support from maybe somebody that had made them sort of feel like there was a better option elsewhere. We, as we speak, have over 3,000 education customers locally to the Borough of Merton, not specifically in, but the boroughs around. We've got over 400 schools, and we are an approved partner to ISBL, ASCL, BESA. We support many of the local school business groups, forums around the country. So I suppose it's kind of telling you that we are the reputable and the trustworthy sort of broker in the sector in this space, because there are a lot out there that really are out for one thing, and that's for themselves. So bus, especially with someone like ISBL, ASCL, they actively promote us, and they wouldn't do that to schools unless we were somebody that you should use or you should consider. We actually administer the ISBL's OG framework, which it's interesting for you to know. This is the fact here that we procure 3.8 terawatts of energy. I often hear sort of schools say, "Oh, we stick with the council because they've got much bigger buying power." 3.8 terawatts of energy is a very big number, and it gives you an idea as to sort of how important we are to suppliers and why we can get such great pricing for our customers. And we offer a really sort of great choice in flexibility in terms of number of suppliers that we look to. So we'll always tender to at least 15 suppliers for your energy, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but different contract terms and conditions to suit you as a school. So what are your options when we go to these suppliers, should you decide after this that you do want to engage with us? At the moment, obviously, you're in the sort of the purple blue box at the end. You're on a flexible contract, which you leave to Merton Council to procure for you. They do all of the administration for it, which we can do that as well. We've got some, what I would say is added benefits, in my opinion, with our flex baskets. But what we can also offer you is the ability to choose what actually suits you as a school and not what suits the borough, in the fact that you might want to be actively engaged in understanding pricing, and you might choose that you want a fixed rate. So, regardless of what happens in the energy market, we all understand what's going on at the moment. You've heard the word crisis on the news, energy crisis, quite a lot. There are some customers, specifically of ours, that signed before this happened. They're in a fixed deal, which is way below what the current wholesale market is. And so they're really happy. They're sitting there happy as Larry that whatever's going on with this crisis doesn't affect them. It may be that, like some of those customers, a fixed long-term contract is what's right for you. Who knows? We'll have to obviously look at and talk to you individually to see what is best. But we also do group buy-in, which is essentially, the same sort of thing, fixed contracts in a group. So we could move a lot of you onto that at once if the request or the want for it is there. And as I said at the start, the option to be in the exact sort of same position in terms of the deal that you're with the borough of a flexible deal could be there as well. That is just where essentially you give the power to somebody else to buy your energy essentially whenever they feel is the right time throughout a period, whether it's 1, 2, 3 years. We might buy 3 months worth at a time, 6 months worth at a time, and try and catch the market on downward runs. But what would sort of be, if you was to choose to go into that, some of the things that we do customer service wise above and beyond what I believe you're getting at the moment is you'd get some market reports giving you analysis as to what's going on in the industry. Those reports will kind of give you an indication as to what might be happening with your prices, so you're aware of fluctuations, and that is as a standard. Why choose ZEnergy? We're not the only one out there. Of course, you've got CCS, who the DFE endorse. We've found some really interesting stats that the CCS portal had. I think the number, don't sort of hold me to this, it's off the top of my head. I think it was something like 58,000 quotes they'd had, and it was less than 1% had actually signed up with them, which shows that, although the DFE endorse it, it's clearly not sort of particularly preferable when people actually look at it. There's no customer support on that, so once you've signed up, you're a bit like you're at home. If you've got any issues with your bills or anything, it's you making calls to them and sitting on hold and dealing with all of that process. Usage isn't monitored, so you can't sort of track what you're doing and look to improve, which we'll come on to a little bit later. So there's a lot that you don't get with it, and it doesn't actually sound like it's particularly great in terms of pricing either. So you will also get called by brokers. We like to say that we're not sort of really a cold calling broker. We will make the odd introduction call to schools, which we have been doing in Merton, but we're certainly not like some that will probably you've experienced. They will phone you several times a day, every day, until somebody sort of takes their call. That's not what we like. They are hard sell, those companies, and it's for a reason. Don't fall for it. Get everything in writing, because they can say stuff on the phone that doesn't actually happen. And we've got a link there that I would encourage you, if you're looking at sort of around at multiple brokers, check out that ZEnergy is your energy consultant reliable, ethical and transparent page on our website. Gives you some tips as to the right questions to ask, the way to go about the process, and hopefully that will filter out anyone that really you wouldn't want to be getting involved with. We're different in the fact that, like I say, our ethos is all about delighting our customers. It's we have a strategic day every year, and one of the first things that's mentioned is we make sure that we are working and committed as members of staff to delighting every customer that we come into contact with. You get a dedicated relationship manager once you've joined us that will help with that. So they'll keep you up to date with relevant communications. If you've got any sort of issues at all, like hopefully there wouldn't be, but anything that you do need to talk to somebody about, they're your point of call. It takes stress out. It removes time. It's time saving. So, for example, invoices, you don't have to worry about invoices when you're with us, because we validate them prepayment. So they come into us from the supplier first. They run through a computer system algorithm that may say that it needs to be double checked, or that we're happy with it, we're not happy with it. If we do find anything, it will be us that will go back to the supplier and say, look, this isn't right. You need to get this invoice right before we can send it to the customer for payment. That stops some of I know that in your borough at the moment in Merton, that there was an issue with CCL payments, and essentially you were charged to have a consultancy come in and get your CCL back. Well, if your invoices had been validated in the first place, it would have thrown that up as an issue. It's a prevention rather than cure situation, I suppose. We also have what we call our PEPI. It's an online portal which we take the meter readings from your bills as part of that validation process, put it into a portal, and it puts those kilowatt hour numbers that generally don't mean a lot of sense, or don't make a lot of sense to people, into nice, easy to see charts, whether it's bar charts or line graphs. We benchmark you on there against kind of like the national average of our customers. So you'll be able to see what other primary schools are doing in terms of consumption. It might flag up that you're using a hell of a lot more energy than other schools in the sector, and you might then sort of start to think why and what can we do to reduce that, the carbon footprint, all of those sorts of stuff, which is a very timely conversation to have. We also give you lots of content and guidance. So there's lesson materials, lesson plan materials, all sorts of stuff that's really interesting for you as a school. And then obviously end-to-end procurement service, whether it's compliance, so display energy certificates, it could be air conditioning survey reports, it could be a whole host of anything that is energy related. I can almost assure you that we've got a service that will help with that. I've done a couple of display energy certificates for schools that I'm working with in the area already, and I'm led to believe that our offer is cheaper than what you're getting at the moment. So if you have got something coming up, or you'd like to discuss that with me, then let me know, because like I say, there is sort of, as I'm made aware, savings to be made from that side of things. This wasn't sort of generally part of the initial sort of contact when we spoke to schools in Merton, but again, the schools that I have been working with in the borough have already switched their water to us. The water market was deregulated a few years ago, so where you'll probably remember at a time you were with Castle or Thames, whoever it may be that your particular area was put to, and that was it. There was no choice for you. Well, you do now have a choice, just like you do your gas and your electric suppliers, and the savings aren't huge, as you can see, savings up to 5%, but you, again, a better customer service. You'll get monthly invoices, which I know that a lot of schools get sort of 6 monthly or annually, which isn't generally sort of preferred. You can keep on top of things with monthly bills better. Fixed charges from sort of our side up until the 31st of March 24. Stress-free invoicing and account management. We rectify issues on your behalf. Some schools have been really sort of thankful for the fact that they've come on board with us and we've managed to get metering issues sorted for them, whether that be new installs or just generally getting them read, which is often a problem. Your same ZEnergy relationship manager for your energy would be exactly the same. So it's kind of one point of call for all of your utilities from that aspect. And we would manage a transfer for you. So it's a really easy sort of system. If you sort of get separate billing for waste and sewage, it's all on one with us, which again, I find saves admin time. So it's a benefit. And one of the things with the water market, it is quite new, and we've managed to sort of work with a few suppliers over the years, and we now work with one particular company that is what we believe the best in the market, and that's Water to Business. They provide great service, and we work really well with them. The same, talking about earlier how we take your consumption off of bills and put it into the portal, we do the same for your water as well. So again, putting these cubic meters, numbers of water that you've used into actual tangible sort of understood figures, and we can give you some benchmarking on those as to whether your school's using more water than you should be. We find this is quite often the case. Water's often forgotten about. It's not often one of the bigger aspects of a budget, so it may not get the same attention as maybe your energy contracts. But it is really important to look at it, because I've personally found in the last few months working with a particular couple of schools, they've had leaks, unknown leaks, and only way they've found this out is by, firstly, they came on board with us in water, saw their consumption on our portal, decided to have a water survey, which is what this slide's about, and it's proven that they've had a leak that they wouldn't have been aware of. That's enabled to be fixed, and it saves them a huge amount of money. In terms of sort of what a energy survey would do, is they'd come out, assess how you're using water. Maybe that you might want to have certain parts of your school, you might have taps that just constantly run if they're left on, but you can install auto stops, things like that, which in the long run can save money. And this is all about trying to reduce your usage, which, if you have a look at here's some savings that we identified for schools during 2021. You had a secondary school here. We saved them over 3,000 cubic meters per year, which in terms of a implementation cost to do that was 15,500, but they saved £6,780 a year as a result. So it's a payback on that survey and those works of less than 3 years. You can even see some here, secondary school in Cambridgeshire, 0.15 year payback. So you're talking almost immediate payback on that, saving 16,000 a year. Huge one here, immediate payback, nearly £56,000 saving. So water really can be, when you're looking at your budgets at the moment and things are really tough, this could be an easy way to win back some money that could be really helpful in other areas. There's a few also sort of important summary points here as well, is that you should be exempt from paying VAT on your water. So just double check those bills, make sure that you're not. Our surveys will identify wastage, and more importantly, going back to that deregulation, is that back in April last year, there was a cut-off point for part of the deregulation. If you haven't actively switched your supplier in probably the last 12 months to maybe 18 months or so, there is a good chance that you'll be on out of contract rates with your water. So there's definitely savings to be made. So if you've not actively looked at it, please do. Really simple. I can get you a quote after I've had a letter of authority from you and a bill. I can get you a quote within about sort of 7 to 10 days, and you could be switched within a month. So it's really, really simple. Just to back up the point, the best way to pay less is to use less, and that's both water and gas and electric. So moving on to another point that I know that there's been some work done on this in some aspects in the borough, but I don't think that the actual results or a lot of the work has actually been put into place from sort of what I understand. But energy audits, with the market being high, with the price of your electric going up, there's never been a more important time to identify and reduce some of the wastage or the extra energy that you're paying for that could be saved. So our energy audits would mean that one of our mechanical engineers would come out, look at everything from the fabric of the building all the way through to behavioural issues. It might be lights being left on, boilers being turned up because people are a little bit cold. Actually turn the temperature up on a boiler by 1 degree, 2 degrees can cost thousands and thousands per year. Those boiler systems might not be being used properly because they were installed 15 years ago, and there's been 3 new facilities managers since then, and they've all kind of, I suppose, fiddled with the settings, and they're not quite running at their optimum level. All of these things can have a pound's impact on your budget, and we would identify them and help you put a step-by-step plan of action into place as to how you can get some of those savings back with as little payback or as quick a payback time as possible. What are the opportunities in there? No cost and low cost measures are included. So target out of hours electricity usage, that ties back into the portal. We can see what you're using. If you're using it out of hours, why, and can that be reduced? Turning off appliances overnight, etc. Reducing the temperatures inside of schools, as I mentioned a moment ago. We've actually got some really helpful temperature gauges, thermometers that you can just literally hang up in classrooms and things to bring awareness to what's going on. I know some people go, oh, I don't want to do that because if it says that it's cold, 9 times out of 10 I'll probably say it's not cold in a room according to that temperature gauge. That's just people's personal opinions, but you're welcome to those if you want them. You can install local heat and temperature controls, TRVs on individual radiators, that sort of stuff, which would help. Insulating pipe work, insulating buildings, smart light controls, all of these sorts of things, which are the smaller jobs that can make a big difference. And then longer term measures that are often a bit more expensive but can have quite a significant impact: LED lighting, double glazing, replacing inefficient boilers, and perhaps you've got the ability to have some solar panels on your roofs, things like that also could be brought up as part of this audit as an option. And we'd help you through, not only would we bring it up as an option, but we'd actually then help you get from identifying it all the way through to installation and actually realizing some of those cost savings. It's a real sort of whole 100% 360 degree approach to it. Here's just another example, a case study of immediate savings on an energy audit in terms of how it actually worked in theory. So there was an annual cost reduction of £5,185 for just a capital spend of £2,000, and it reduced almost 16 tons of carbon dioxide as well, which is amazing. We've reduced it through improving that management heat system around heating temperatures, adjusted the heating times to match the occupation. You don't want to be heating a school 4 hours before they arrive necessarily, things like that. Better management of the door and windows being opened, training to people, to staff members and pupils to make sure that they're sort of using best practice. We also had an annual reduction of almost £12,000 for a higher spend, 46,000, but delivering thermostat valves, upgrade LED lighting. These are significant sums of money to save each year. So hopefully that sort of shows that they really are worth their weight in gold having these done. The initial investment of them, of what they cost, is often minimal payback time. So if you're interested in that, please do let me know. Part of that, mentioning behavioural sort of aspects, we have a lot of resources to help support your pupil engagement in it and teacher engagement, staff engagement. For example, our climate crisis game, which we had developed specifically for primary school children, but actually it's quite enjoyable as an adult. You've got a little town there that you're in charge of, and you have to make critical decisions on whether you move to sort of solar panels or you install wind farms, and it's all about sort of reducing the CO2 impact on the environment. And yeah, really fun. There's a leaderboard, so get on there and have a good go, get the pupils involved. They have to answer questions to get a little bit of extra funds to install stuff. So yeah, really engaging and fun. We've got activity guides, which we did with the ASCL, about being a planet superhero. We've got energy usage trackers, which you can put up in classrooms, and they can sort of understand what energy is being used in the school throughout a certain period. Those are just a few of the resources we have. There is a lot there. It's essentially use us as much as you can. We also have the ability to help you with your compliance. I mentioned it, I think, at the beginning about the display energy certificates. We have the team in place to do those for you, and like I say, the schools that I've done it for locally in the last 2 to 3 months have both come back and said that the price that we offered was a fairly significant saving against what they've been paying previously. We do it on a 3-year contract, and that will mean that you can basically just forget about it. We'll contact you at the expiration, the next expiration date, and get it brought up to date so you can continually compliant. Air conditioning inspections are often overlooked. TM44 it's called. We've got some information around that. If you've got some air conditioning units, get in touch. I can help you understand whether you are needing to be compliant with that, and if so, if it is something that you need, I can get you some quotes for that. Again, I've been made aware that we're quite significantly cheaper than other providers on that, so I'll happily quote that. If you're part of a trust and you are expected to comply with SECA, then again we can work with SECA as well. Few people ask, are you responsible for ESOS? No, you're not in the education sector. It's SECA, but only if you meet 2 of the 3 criteria. So again, happy to answer any questions around any of this if you need to, whatsoever. Hopefully by this stage, having waffled on a little bit, you're sort of interested, you want to understand a bit more about what's going on, and you want to know what the next steps are. Very simple. We, as part of the I suppose the process up until you getting onto this webinar, there was an LOA that was sent out. If you haven't got that to hand, just get in touch with me and I'll get you a copy. You fill that in, sign it, scan it, send it back to us with a copy of your bills. Ideally, we like one most recent and then one from sort of pre-COVID, just to have a look at what your consumption was in what we would call a normal year, if anyone can remember what one of those is. Also, but around this, obviously, with your bills, we know, and you know, that Merton have come out and said that they haven't bought your energy, or they hadn't when they last sort of emailed out, which I think was late December. Nothing had been put in place in terms of energy contracts for the 1st of April onwards. If we're going to do a comparison, really we need to know what their new bills or new prices are going to be. It's not absolutely essential. If you wanted to just say, yeah, actually, do you know what, I feel like I want a different service, and I actually would like an individual contract just for me based on what is best for me, so I'm going to come away from that anyway. We don't necessarily need that. I'm sure your probably governors will though, so we'll just have to work with that, because there's no timescale been put on when you're going to be notified about your new prices, of which there's no doubt going to be a fairly significant increase. So yeah, just get in touch and we'll kind of work through this as an ongoing process over the next few months. One of the really good things is that Merton haven't requested a 3-month prior notice period, which some councils do, or some boroughs do, which puts you in a great position that you can make a pretty quick decision and can come out at some point when you choose to. We'd then, obviously, like I said, review the prices, the options, give you some recommendations, talk about what might and might not work for you. It's about putting the power into your hands and making decisions that are right for your school and not just for every public building in the borough. It may be that actually we look at it and we say, do you know what, you're on a great deal. Stay where you are. We are open enough and honest enough, if that is the case, to say, yeah, you know, hang fire for a while. We genuinely are out there to do the best by you, and we're not afraid to admit at times, you know, it's quite a complex process, the energy procurement situation. And let's just say, you know, the borough bought their energy prices at a real low, then it obviously makes it really difficult for us to then better the pricing. And you know, why wouldn't you be honest as a procurement sort of company working with yourself as a school to just say that? You know, it's not that we've done anything wrong, it's just that the timings weren't right in terms of us being able to give you a saving or whatever. So yeah, we will be honest with our recommendations, but again, going back to a school that I had engaged with about April, May last year, the fixed prices that I offered them at that moment in time are lower than the price that is being paid now as part of that flexible basket. So it proves that it can work in your favour to come with us. And then that last one, please do just contact me if there's anything in this slideshow that or this kind of tea break is of interest, if it sparked any sort of questions. I know that we've sort of, there's the ability to ask some questions in here, which I'll go through now in a sort of a question and answer session. But if there's anything that you want to contact me directly, my details are on screen. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. It's no obligation. None of this is, you know, we're not going to force you into anything. We'd just like to put some options out there and like I say, let you make the decision that you want to and is best for you. So thanks for listening to me. Thanks for putting up with my waffle, as I like to call it. Hopefully some of it was interesting. Hopefully there's some positives to take out of there, and hopefully I'll be talking to some of you sort of more directly about your procurement and some other parts of the process moving forward. And I'd like to open it up for any sort of questions that may have come in whilst I've been chatting away.
Thanks, Ash. That was incredibly helpful, and I love that I heard little Dorothy in the background getting involved.
Oh dear, sorry. She's just back from one of her little heartbeat classes, so yeah, she's obviously full of energy and probably coming to tell me about what she did.
Very, very cute. We have had some questions in the time being, but just to echo what you said earlier, if anyone is interested in receiving any of our resources, we have a stack of stuff that we can help and send. So whether that be temperature gauges, energy trackers, or there's resources on the website. And don't forget to follow our social media platforms as well to just be in the know of all the latest news. So I'll just kick off with one of the questions that we've had. So I've heard lots in the news about the energy crisis, and my supplier at home went bust. So I'm paying more. How bad is the market, and what can we expect for budgets this year?
Okay, yeah, kind of expected that question really, given you know, it's been so sort of so it's in the headlines so much over the last sort of 4 or 5 months. The word crisis is thrown around a lot. The crisis comes down to 2 things. One of them is the wholesale rate, which I'll actually share my screen in a second and show you what the impact is of that, and which will make a fairly significant difference to your prices from April onwards, given what we know about sort of the Merton contract. But one of the reasons that there's a crisis is, yeah, like your supplier at home that's gone bust, there's been more suppliers going to the supplier of last resort process in the last sort of 6 months than ever before, which means that ultimately there's a lot of sort of debt that's been left in the industry. There's a lot of people that are being pushed to suppliers they didn't choose, and it all has an impact on costs essentially. I'm going to share another screen with you, which is basically this graph here. share screen one. Hopefully you should now be seeing a graph.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah. So there's a wholesale graph here. So this is showing you the power, the electric. So your electricity is made up of two parts. One of it is the commodity, which is the actual electric, you know, the spark that's coming through the power line, so to speak. And then non-commodity costs, which are all of the taxes and levies, etc., that are put on top of it. It's about 60, 40, 65, 35 split. This is showing the electricity part of that, the smaller part, since September 2013. And as you can see across the bottom, the blue line has always been relatively sort of flat, low, down in that 30 to 60 pounds per megawatt hour. And then you get to kind of January 21 and it all starts to climb, where it at one point in September, sort of November, sort of December time last year, got all the way up to that 330 or over 330 pounds per megawatt hour. You know, that graph speaks for itself, and that is what is going to be impacting prices for anyone that, you know, was out of contract, that needed to secure a new contract within these periods. The good news is that it has dropped a fair amount over the last sort of 2 to 3 weeks. As you can see, very slightly on the far end on the right, the number drops down to about the sort of 160 pounds per megawatt hour mark. It's a very similar story in terms of the gas prices. So hopefully you're seeing the gas graph now. Very similar in terms of goes all the way up to, you know, record highs, and it's dropped down here to still well above average, but it's probably not as bad as what it could have been. Now, the reason why I say it's maybe not as much of a crisis as it's made out to be at times, because it depends what actual deal you go for as a user. There's kind of like, if the further out that you're willing to commit to, the cheaper that the energy actually becomes. So the latest sort of market update, which I'm going to share for you now, which came to me yesterday, this actual graph shows you three colors, 3 lines. And as you can see, the 3-year deal on here, which is electric, the price is at just over £100 per megawatt hour. Well, £100 per megawatt hour, when you actually look at the wholesale graph that I showed you originally, it's about here. Yes, it is still higher than what it has been. Yes, in an ideal world, if you had secured a contract in sort of 2020 and fixed it for, you know, 4 or 5 years, you'd be in a great position. But, you know, that's hindsight. Nobody in the industry saw this coming. It's a perfect storm, and this is what's happened. But ultimately, I guess with all of what I'm saying is, yes, there's been some big impacts. There still is going to be a relatively big impact. But as long as you've got the right strategy and you understand it, you can kind of, I suppose, plan for it. And it may not be as bad as the word crisis.
Thank you for explaining that visually. That was actually really useful. And funnily enough, you mentioned about commodity and non-commodity costs. We do actually have a very useful page on the website around that. So if you need to, you know, if you want to find out a little bit more, you can literally check out our resources page and keyword search commodity. I've got a couple more questions, if that's okay, Ash.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is the process of switching simple? Do I have to do anything?
It is very simple. Yes, you do have to do stuff. We like to think that we can minimise what you have to do as much as possible. But there are things that do need to be done. But essentially the process is that you get, as I mentioned earlier, the LOA signed, you get your bills to us. I will do the large majority of the work, in terms of I will do or my colleague Jamie might, depending on your particular school. What we'll do is we'll go off to the suppliers, we'll get the tender done, we will come back to you with a comprehensive document which will show you the top 3 suppliers, because we know that you need that. It will give you a breakdown of what your a summary of what you're paying now versus what you would be paying on the new deal. It makes it very easy for you to kind of see exactly every point of change. It obviously ticks boxes for your procurement purpose, having 3 suppliers. You can take it to governors and it's very self-explanatory. If you then want to go ahead, we get that signed, we get it locked in with the supplier, and then we go through the transfer process, which will probably take place a month, 6 weeks after that's been signed. You might find that there is what we call objections. They might say, your current supplier might say, we're not willing for you to leave. It can be a whole host of reasons why. It could be debt. It could be that maybe the council haven't told them that you're actually free to leave. There's just a breakdown of communication. But ultimately, we're there to support you through that process and do as much of it as we can. The bits that we can't physically do for you, we would advise you and walk you through that process. So we're really there to kind of be everything that we can be during the process.
Thank you for explaining that. And I think we've got time for one more question. Just before I jump into it, it's just worth noting, if there is any questions that come through in the meantime or we haven't been able to answer it, that we can do it offline. So please feel free to contact Ash using the details on the screen, and he'll be happy to come back to you very quickly, no doubt. So the last question is, we would like to involve our students when trying to become a green school. Fabulous, because we have our green superhero guide with ASCL.
Yep.
Can you help us bring this to life for the students?
Yeah, so I think obviously we've covered a little bit of this in, like you've just said, we've got the green superhero resources that we did with ASCL. We also, if you have things like the energy audits, then we can actually offer the service that the engineer that does those reports can actually do some sort of, I suppose, workshop or explanation day where they'll actually talk through the results to the pupils, engage with how some of the amounts of, or not the amounts, but some of the calculations are come to. So yeah, lots of resources, lots of tools. We actually really enjoy it when pupils get involved, because ultimately we're educating for the future, right? And the energy market is it's really in the headlines at the moment. There's lots of engagement with it at all sort of ages, and it's just really good to spark those conversations, and there's lots of options to help do that.
Great, thank you so much, Ash, and also thank you for everyone that's listened today on demand or live. As mentioned, if you'd like to get in contact with Ash, then the details are there, or please feel free to use the website contact form. Even if you would like to request a copy of the slides, I'm sure that's no problem.
Yep.
All that's left to say is thank you and take care.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and hope to speak to you soon. Thanks, Jen.